Hey, Arnie.
Howdy. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. I think your camera's off.
Hmm. It shows it's on, but
Ash, if I send you the.
let me try something a little different here. I might lose you and have to come back on, but let me try something. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not coming on the camera.
Sorry, Arnie, I walked out of the room. I had to go
Uh,
talk to you. Now I'm
yeah,
back. There you
the
are.
show is on, but on my side. But can you see me now?
I can see you now.
Let's see here. How's that? Hang on one second. Let me change something up a little bit. Is that looking okay?
I'll tell you in just a second. I got to send something to my partner here. Yeah, you look great. All right. Now I just got to get this set up so I can see the folks here. All right. Wow, that was something else. Um, all right. We are live. This is streaming out to YouTube and to LinkedIn, of course. Um, put this up on the screen. Oh, let me turn this down. All right, just got to wait for my partner to get on over here. I'm looking at my partner. I see what he's doing. There he is. All right, Ash.
Let me get my headset in here, Mike.
No problem.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right,
Yep.
perfect.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
You guys know that you grew up kind of by each other, right, Ash?
Um, I, I'm probably. Where'd you grow up at?
Well, he's from
Um,
The Didier Farms family.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, uh, a good friend of mine is like Matt Hoffman of Hoffman Greenhouses on 176, and
yeah.
I went to Carmel High School. Actually, I think one of your cousins or something. I probably was on the same football team as them in the '80s.
Yeah, you went well, a little bit older than you, but he's actually in Missoula right now. Dave, who runs the farm still.
Yeah, right on. Okay, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I went to
I'm
Stevenson with his wife, so
Jory.
yeah,
Yeah,
a few
right on.
years earlier. Hmm.
All right, well, let's get this kicked off. It's Friday, February, is it the 10th or the 11th today?
11th.
It's the 11th. Oh my gosh. Um, and Ash, why don't you start things off and tell us what you saw for this week of trading? What's trade of the week?
Yeah, so obviously everybody sees the volatility in every commodity out there now. Pigs, gas, metal, and lumber is no exception. How many days in a row were we limit up, Mike? It's almost a record for a commodity.
I think we're like at 7 today.
Seven days limit up. which is basically astounding, right? So I think
Pretty much.
again, we'll talk about a few trades of the week. The distance that the stuff is traveling, even with the high prices of freight, is pretty amazing. We sold some more euro off the ports, wide euro back west, which traditionally came out of Washington, Oregon, Canada, and you have lanes that are running into each other that historically shouldn't do that. I think another big trade of the week was all the European 23-30 seconds flooring that we sold back into, Nebraska, Illinois, down to Florida, to North Carolina. Just big moves all over into the interior, which historically were more local type of markets. So nothing really specific to highlight, Mike. It's just part of the thing is as we grow and add more people, these are things that should happen in a digital environment where human beings that could never contact each other find human beings that could never contact them back. Ergo, you have a digital market, right? So what we get surprised by trades of the week, and it's actually what we should be doing, right? And it gets exciting.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So this week I was at the International Home Builder Show down in Orlando, and I was speaking with a nationwide builder, one of the top 15.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things that he said was, their view of the market, they see many different, small ecosystems or small markets, and how different the pricing can be for the same item
Right,
in
for
each
sure.
little market. And I was talking to him like, look, that's just opportunity for arbitrage. So then, if studs are cheap in Chicago, you should be moving them to your Dallas marketplace.
No doubt. No, and that's one interesting thing, Mike. We're seeing traditional buyers become sellers on our platform. And I think that's one of the highlights this week. Again, buyers had to buy certain things, but those retail yards had extra stuff and they want to turn it into cash real quick, and they're selling it back into the market through our platform.
Sure. Rather than if you don't need a contract that you have, well, absolutely you need it because you can sell it through our platform and make 10% margin.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually, and it's been done this week, right?
Many times.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, with that, Ash, we can let you go. We'll talk to you. We'll see you next week on some of your shows again.
You bet.
All right. Take care. So, Arnie, we got the first question of the day is how big is that walleye on the wall behind you?
It's actually a pretty small one. That's from about 60 years ago, believe it or not. My father caught that, and I ended up with it. But it's a pretty small one. The trout are a lot bigger in Montana, so let's put it that way.
This is true. Okay, so Arnie Didier, who are you, and why are you on our show?
Well, I'm here to talk about mass timber. We're in that space. I grew up, happens to be with Jory in the same area, and you guys. I grew up on a farm in the Chicago area, but I live in Montana now. I spent 12 years in Colorado as well. But so I'm from the lumber industry. I have a forestry degree, a wood science degree, and a communications degree from Illinois, and then I've spent about 20 years with Georgia Pacific doing a variety of different jobs for them and with Idaho Forest Group. And then we've owned Forest Business Network the last 15 years.
Okay. And so what is Forest Business Network?
So Forest Business Network, my partner's name is Craig Rawlings. And then I have another partner in Portland. His name is Tom Waddell. But we've actually kind of become like a media company. We have a newsletter that goes out to the forest industry each Wednesday to about 10,000 folks. We do some technical consulting projects on the financial aspects and some other things. But in addition to that, we own and host the International Mass Timber Conference, which we'll talk a little bit about. We also host and own the International Mass Timber Report that goes out kind of worldwide. But that's the kind of the space we live in. So we deal with all parts of the supply chain, always starting with the forest all the way up to the end use.
Now the newsletter is free. You can just sign up for that, and you get it for free. Correct?
Yeah. We've been. You can sign up for it for free. It's a unique little publication. My business partner Craig puts an editorial out each week, and not to be arrogant about it, but most newsletters get a couple of percent, maybe readership. We get 30, 40, 50% or more. It's kind of become a source for a lot of people to go very quickly and see what's going on in the forest industry worldwide.
All right, that's fantastic. And I mean, I know I read it, so I highly recommend everyone else. Like you said, it's free. Sign up for it. In the world we live in today, everything's changing so quickly. Data and information is key. You want to get as much information as you possibly can. So, one of the specialties of your company, though, is mass timber. So that's what we're gonna talk about today. And so the first topic is pretty much everybody knows what mass timber means, but why don't you define mass timber for us real quick?
Yeah. So what we think of as mass timber is not something new. It's a newer term in North America, in U.S. particular. But mass timber is really about engineered lumber products. So taking smaller diameter trees, smaller diameter dimension lumber in many cases, and building it. So you kind of think of glulam beams. That's a mass timber product. Even engineered lumber kind of fits under that. You're seeing other products come about, DLT, dowel laminated timber, and some others. One of the names that a lot of people associate mass timber with is actually a pretty small part of it, but is cross laminated timber, referred to as CLT, which is a product that's really become popular in the last 6 years or so in North America, particularly in US. It's been around Canada for a little bit longer. It's been used and operated in Europe for about 35 years.
So, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. This product, cross laminated timber, is becoming a substitute for non-forest based construction techniques, really specifically concrete and steel. So let's bring us up to speed. What's the current state of the CLT, cross laminated timber construction market here in the United States?
Well, there's probably one word for the space, and it's booming. And the reason it's booming is you're seeing a big undertow of sustainability. You hear the name ESG used out there. You hear about carbon sequestration. It's really a great, interesting dynamic in that for years we wanted the mainstream to talk about why lumber and lumber products make a lot of sense. We were never able to accomplish that. We would talk to the choir. And what mass timber has done is it speaks to a broad base of individuals that may or may not have been part of kind of the support of lumber products. And that's changed dynamically with mass timber products. So what we saw was we started our conference, the first one in 2016, and we're in the space. Prior to that, for 10 years, we hosted what's called the Small Log Conference. It was in Coeur d'Alene, and it was all about utilization of small diameter timber.
Okay.
Mass timber plays right into that. And what happened is we got asked. So in 2016, we put together and moved our conference from Coeur d'Alene to Portland, Oregon. We were expecting 200 people maybe to that conference, and we kept growing, and all of a sudden we hit 500 attendees, and we realized, boy, I need to call, how much space do we have? Well, the answer was 550, and we ended up with 548.
Oh, perfect.
It was kind of crazy. And then we're a lot different than a lot of the trade shows, not unlike the one you were this week and a lot of others. trade shows the last 10 years have really taken a downstroke. Their attendance is faltering and things are going down. Ours has really grown, and it's because it's such a new space. So we've gone from 500 people to 800 to 1200 to 1600, and we'll probably be around 2000 this year. But it's an exciting space to be in. It's really, really impactful for the overall lumber business as well.
So let's talk about a 25-story building in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that's made out of wood.
Yeah.
It sounds very strange to say those two things in the same word, but this is the Ascent building in Milwaukee. And what can you tell us about that building?
It's an extraordinary building. It's going to be the tallest tall wood building in the world for a short period of time. People jostle back and forth for that dynamic, but in the U.S., it's an extraordinary example of what mass timber can do. Tim Gochman is behind that. Newland Enterprises. Him and his dad came to our conference in 2017, 2018, and pitched the idea, and were able to connect with multiple players in the industry from around the world. I kind of thought they were crazy. I didn't know. I grew up in Northern Illinois, just over the border. And sure enough, they're doing extraordinary things, and they're going to be topping that out here in Milwaukee. It's a 25-story complete. It's got some hybrid components, which means you have some concrete components mixed in. Absolutely stunning. It's getting a lot of press around the world, been on lots of different places. We've presented it. We presented a full presentation in December of 2020 on it. And it's an extraordinary project, just one of a multitude of projects out there. They're not all quite 25 stories, but there's a lot of really cool projects around. And I'm very proud of these guys.
So you getting ready for the show, you were telling me that the International Building Code has now approved CLT for up to 18 stories.
Yeah, mass timber projects and products. So that was a real big effort by a lot of folks. There's an organization called Woodworks, which is funded in part by the Softwood Lumber Board, that did a tremendous amount of work around that. Susan Jones, Atler Jones is the name of her company out of Seattle. Jeff Moreau was involved. My business partner, Craig Rawlings, presented in front of Congress around it. And yeah, they were able to pass that. There's still some work to do, and you have some specific codes to work at different cities and different townships and counties. But it's an overriding ability to go to 18 stories. I'm not an engineer or architect, and there's nuances to a lot of that, but it was really a game changer to set the standard, to be able to use that as an undertow to build some extraordinary projects around the world, and particularly in the U.S.
Now, I know the panels for this particular project in Milwaukee came from Europe and through the Great Lakes, unloaded in the Port of Cleveland. But what's happening here in the United States right now as far as production of CLT?
Yeah, so great question. And so you have some of the first ones. D.R. Johnson out in Oregon is a producer of CLT and glue lams. And then you have SmartLam North America. They started in Montana, and then now they own a facility in down in Alabama as well, and they've got a couple more that they're building. You've had others that come into play. You've heard the name maybe Katera. They were that project, that plant factory is in Spokane. It's owned by Mercer, which is a worldwide lumber and paper company. They just purchased that. There's other ones, Element 5, and then a lot of your folks probably know about Vaughan Lumber. Well, Russ Vaughan left that company business and started Vaughan Timbers up in Colville, Washington. And then you've got Nordique It's a very big supplier across North America. And then one of the other ones is Structure Lamb. They're based in BC, and they just built a joint project with Walmart down in Arkansas, and that factory's up and running. There's another one, Kalisnikoff in BC, that just opened, and there's several more planned. So that production has really come up to speed in the last 3 years in North America, and there's more coming.
And of course, if they're making it, it's going somewhere. So where are the projects now?
So it's interesting. It's you can there's some really good information on a couple of different websites. Woodworks is one that I would point you to. But to answer that question, in 2016, we had about 30 projects to pick from to do presentations on. Today, we've got thousands, right? Lots of small projects to all the way up to big projects. And so they're all across the country now. We host our conference in Portland, Oregon. That's kind of become a real epicenter for mass timber in North America. It's actually referred to Hubert Romberg, who owns Romberg Holdings in Europe, and Cree Building Systems. They're one of the largest construction companies in the world. He refers to Portland, Oregon now as the intellectual capital for mass timber in the world. But a lot of it really started in Austria and the surrounding areas. But as far as projects, they're kind of in everybody's backyard now.
So I want to let's go back to Arkansas and talk about Walmart. Walmart's building an entire campus based on CLT construction, and this joint venture with Structure Lamb. I'm guessing it probably will pay itself off, their investment in there, because they're going to be utilizing the capacity of that plant for the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, and they're, Hardy Wenzel's the CEO there. That they will be at our conference, a big team from that company. It's a really extraordinary thought. Who would have ever thought that folks from Walmart would embrace lumber and wood products, particularly mass timber, and then be willing to invest and prod that along. They have some real big social ESG requirements, social governance requirements that they want to meet. And mass timber and wood products are one of those products, that sustainable green product that was been around for years and years and years, is now getting recognized as one of the core products to be used in the building process to really make it a extraordinary look, but also an extraordinary story to tell. Everybody, all these big companies want a great story, and wood products is finally getting their day in the sun to talk about it. It's changing the momentum of wood products. I've been in wood products. It paid for my freight for the last 37 years. And I love wood products, but now I've really got a lot to stand on when I'm talking to anybody about the sustainability. And they actually believe me because they're hearing it from other folks.
Well, what fascinates me is it's the pull, the demand for a different style of building that's driving this change. Normally you come up with a new building method and you have to force it into the market and try to convince people how to, to use this. But in this case, it's the massive companies, the massive money pulling through. Why don't you touch on some of those companies you talked about before the call here that were doing
one
this?
thing that I'll mention before that's interesting, that touches on what you mentioned, Mike, is there's a guy by the name of Michael Green. He's a famous architect in the space. He was our first keynote speaker in 2016. In 2015 or 14, he did one of the TED Talks, and it hit well over 1.5 million views. And he talked about why using wood and mass timber makes sense in buildings. And that's all he does. But he refers to a comment that he's never seen anybody come up and hug a concrete column, but he's witnessed people come up and hug these beautiful glulam or mass timbers. products. And, we embrace the concrete industry too. We compete with them in a sense, but lots of buildings are hybrid buildings. It's important to work with concrete, steel. We bring them always to the conference. But probably the biggest game changer that I witnessed happened in 2018. So we host this conference, and the Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Amazon people would all come, and literally we wouldn't be able to tell anybody on the floor who was there. They wouldn't put their names on their tags because they were researching. That changed when a very dynamic, smart lady, architect, head of Google development, came on stage in 2018 in front of a group. She was there with the head of the Nature Conservancy and others on the stage. We always bring all parts of the supply chain. And on that stage, she said, "We love mass timber. And go forward, we're going to use mass timber for our buildings." And she wasn't full of BS. They just built a 350,000 square foot mass timber building in San Francisco. They just completed a 400,000 square foot building in London. They've got multiple other projects. But all of a sudden, you had the credibility of these tech companies saying, "We like it." And coupled with that, the head of forestry for TNC, his name was Mark Wisney, was on stage. And so you think in our wood backgrounds, we think, oh, people hate cutting down trees. They do this, they're that. And what TNC said was, hey, we really like mass timber and wood products. We embrace it. What we don't like is if you cut the trees down and turn it into a parking lot, because that's the bad part.
So TNC is the Nature Conservancy.
The Nature Conservancy. You have Sierra Club saying the same thing, all these other folks. But the powerful part about that is what they're saying is it's the ultimate double dip. You cut down trees, which sequester carbon in buildings, make beautiful buildings that people want to office in, live in, recreate in, and you get that. But then you go back, and the double dip is the good forest managers and stewards of our land get to replant and regrow and get the double dip of those growing back. It's a really cool combination. That's the story that the tech companies, big money companies are doing, and they're leading with their jaw.
So
multiple buildings.
Let's bring this full circle. Let's bring it back to who's paying attention to this show, because they all want to know how can they get involved. So let's talk about the, I guess, grassroots of this. Like, how do you build a building? How do you learn how to build these buildings?
Yeah, there's some great sources out there. One of the sources is our conference, and not to be a blue light special on our conference, but it's a way to connect with all parts of the industry. So people come from we'll have about 40 different countries, couple thousand in-person attendees. It's hosted in April 12th through the 14th in Portland. That is one way that you could immediately touch a lot of folks. In conjunction with that, if you can't bite off that much and travel and do those kind of things, we will have a virtual half-day continuation event. You can sign up for that in April 15th. That's going to open, and you can get a taste of that. But the other really strong, good way to do it is just to pay attention to what's going on. It's not unlike what your organization is doing. The new world is technology, right? LinkedIn is a huge source of information, and you can see a tremendous amount of information being posted daily about mass timber. There's mass timber groups. It's easy to search. We co-produce the conference with an organization called Woodworks. They are an organization that is countrywide that supports projects, small and big and everything in between. They have multiple resources available. They put on presentations, but there is more and more accessible information. Something that I would mention to you is we do produce a report. It's called the International Mass Timber Report. This is what the report looks like, right? International Mass Timber Report. There's the masstimberreport.com. It's an easy find. You can actually download an e-copy of 2021, or if you want something that's shareable, there's a 2020 PDF copy. They're similar in scope with some minor differences, but 2022, which comes out April 12th, will be a completely different look. It'll talk about how much wood's being used in the space, where the buildings are, what's the sustainability piece. It talks about why modular construction is embracing mass timber and wood products. We think that's a huge growth area as well, but there's some resources there very quickly to learn about it.
So I was at the BCMC show, the Trust Builders show, and the National Framers Council, and CLT construction was a big topic out there. Here's the reality of it. It's coming. It's going to be in your backyard before you know it. And if you don't know how to construct that way, the architects and developers are going to find someone else, right?
It's changing, the modular construction space, which is converting to a lot of wood products, is a big space. Mass timber is taking is forcing changes out there in some ways. But people in the space, it's a wood product, and it doesn't take any special things. It just you need to look at it a little bit differently, your project.
Well, and it's becoming commoditized. They're moving towards a standardized panel that will act like a wood member or a wood beam. That'll be easy to design around and easy to construct with.
Yeah, you're seeing there's a requirement that's through the APA, which everybody's familiar with, which they host a group at the conference as well. But yeah, you're seeing some standardization of cross-laminated timber panels. We've had standardization of glue lam beams for years, just like I-joists and others. But I think the next gravitation is lumber yards are going to have panels in stock, and we're starting to see a little bit of that, CLT panels. And just like glue lams and others, that's kind of the next evolution, because right now it's a lot of customization. And that's one of the beauties of customization of it, is you can produce stuff off site and then you bring it to your site ready to assemble, and your speed of delivery is very, very quick. That, using examples, there's anecdotal examples of how quickly they can put up these buildings that are absolutely fantastic. It's one of the paybacks to the developer and the construction company, is the speed of delivery of the projects.
So let's wrap this up. I always ask one last question. Well, before I ask the question, here's the reality is mass timber is here to stay. It's been proven in other countries. Now it's proven here. It's only going to grow. And in my opinion, you'd be foolish not to figure out what's going on and get involved however you can. So what do you see, Arnie, that other people don't see? What's the world going to look like in 5 years? In your opinion?
Well, we've seen mass timber go in relatively a 6-year span from a few projects a year to hundreds of projects. And we're starting to see, modular is not new, panelization's not new. I think the combination of mass timber, modular, off-site is going to change the way building is being done. And it's driven by the capabilities of the industry. It's a system. Just like you build a Ford truck in a factory. By the way, Ford is building 2 factories in the U.S. to build EV, trucks and cars. $11 billion investment, all of their buildings are going to be mass timber. Pretty interesting.
That's
So
really
there's a
interesting.
reason, but there's a reason you build trucks and other products in factories, and it's nothing to take away. I'm from the construction industry. My uncles, my brother-in-laws are all carpenter contractors. It's not going to replace that, but in my opinion, the construction industry is going to change significantly within the 2 to 5 year span. You saw that at the show you were just at with the energy around prefabrication, modularization, and offsite construction.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw this up here one last time. It's a great conference. We're planning on attending, so hopefully see you out there. The thing I really like about this conference is that it's not just a trade show, but there is so much education going on and really good conversation. And this the industry's working together to move forward. And the beautiful thing is they're moving forward into a world that they're so not just accepted but wanted. When Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, and Ford are making buildings or commissioning buildings out of this product, it's probably something you want to pay attention to.
Well, we appreciate it. And there's going to be a lot of lumber folks and all the producers come to the conference now, but it's all parts of the supply chain. Like you mentioned, Mike, it all starts with education. It's an education conference. We do have an exhibit hall and we have, receptions, and those are really fun, really energetic. It's a very safe environment, COVID wise, and those restrictions are getting removed daily, but very safe. It's a beautiful facility. It's a tough get now because all of our hotels are getting sold out, and but it's a lot of fun, and it's a new way for lumber folks, construction folks to get involved and look at things a little different. The audience is way different than you would expect. 40 to 50% women in the industry, very sharp. Same with our presentations, but a mixed. You're going to be sitting next to a logger, sitting next to a construction person, sitting next to an engineer, architect, developer. All the money people, the big money people are coming because they're all enthralled with it. Next to a Google person. It's really a strange combination, but having a few beers really helps break the ice.
I can imagine. All right, Arnie, thanks so much for bringing us this information. I can't recommend getting their newsletter enough. It's a fantastic resource. And check out the conference. Maybe we'll have you back in a year and we'll see where we're at that point.
I love it. And you're doing great work. I'm really proud of what you guys and
thank you
with Ashley and Jory and the whole group. I think it's an extraordinary way to go, and we're supporting you 100%. It's really fun to see that.
Appreciate it, Arnie. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Have a safe weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.